Hello, it's Miss Hall,
Ms. Nelson.
and we are doing personal and family budgets. So we talk about the Lorenzo family is they're creating their budget. A budget is a plan for spending, and the graph shows their total income after taxes are deducted and their monthly spending or expenses. Knowing both income and expenses is necessary in order to build your family spending or your family budget. So there's a lot of terms in here you're responsible for. These were actually terms in your crossword puzzle vocabulary that you did a couple of weeks ago. Was it 2 weeks ago?
Yes.
Something like that. Okay, so your personal budget is the plan for your own spending. Fixed expenses are the costs that do not change based on the amount you use, while variable expenses do change based on the amount you use. So here's our budget. If you can't read it, taxes is right here, and it's $1,265. And housing is here, and it's $1,540. So let's go to number one. Determine the total of all budgeted expenses. So in order to do the total, obviously you just have to add all these up. Make sure you line up proper place values when you're adding, or you will not get the correct answer. So total. And I usually start at one spot and go around clockwise just to make sure I don't miss something.
While Ms. Hall's writing all this down, there are a couple of different ways you can do it. I break mine up into groups, meaning that I only take a couple at a time and I add those and get the total, and then I pick a couple more and add those in. If you're somebody that kind of gets lost when you're adding a whole lot of numbers, that would probably be best for you. If you don't have any issues adding and you can keep everything lined up and straight, then obviously you can add all the components at one time. It's just kind of personal preference, but please know that you can break it up into pieces and that you will still get the same answer as you go through and do it. You just have to make sure to go back and add all the remaining pieces if you are in fact breaking it up into a couple of groups.
See, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. It just takes a little while. And I'm off the page, I think.
And guys, like we said, it's really easy to make a mistake, so just take your time, because if you do this one piece wrong, everything else that you are going to solve with the budget is going to be incorrect. So please make sure you take your time and find the total accurately, so that the rest of your answers will be accurate as well.
Okay, I got $5,500 for their total expenses a month.
Okay, so the next question says, what percent of the total budget is for college savings and then for food? So whenever you're doing this, because it specifically asks us what percent, okay, then I know that I am going to be setting up a proportion in order to find the percent. So I'm going to start with college savings first. So over here I'm going to label it with the C. If I am looking for a percent, then it is X over 100. Anytime you're looking for a percent, then it is always X, and 100 always goes on the bottom. So now, the piece that I'm looking for is college savings, so I come up here and that is 550 over my total amount, which is what Ms. Hall just solved, which was 5,500. Okay? Now, a shortcut that I like to do, from here we're going to cross multiply, okay? But before we do, I'm actually going to cross out these two zeros to make my numbers a little bit smaller to work with. So that leaves me with 550x equals, and then 100 times 55 is 5,500. So I divide both sides just like when you guys were solving equations. Okay? And I get x equals 10. So my college savings equals 10% of the overall budget. Okay? So now I'm going to do the exact same thing again, and this time I'm going to do it for food. So I'm going to move my paper up. So for food, I know it's going to be X over 100, again, because I'm looking for that percent. Food over here is 440. That goes on top. My total of 5,500 goes on bottom. Again, I'm going to cross out those zeros to make it a little bit easier. Now, if both numbers did not have a zero at the end, you could not do that step. What I'm doing essentially is dividing it by 10 to take out a zero. Okay? So I'm going to cross multiply. Again, I get 550x equals, this time it's 4,400. I divide by 550. And in this case, x equals 8%. So food equals 8% of the overall budget. Okay, number 3 says if each parent worked 160 hours during the month and earned a total of $35 per hour, would their income be less than, equal to, or greater than the budgeted expenses? And explain. Anytime you know it says explain, you're going to be writing a sentence. Now, they earned a total of $35 per hour, okay, which means that both parents combined earned that much if they were to put together their hourly wages. So I'm going to take my total hours worked, 160, and I'm going to multiply it by my 35. So remember your zero placeholder. A lot of you guys are missing zeros whenever we're multiplying. Make sure you do something that marks that zero placeholder so you know that that's going to be the placeholder and you're not just starting to multiply again. So 18, 3. All right, so when I get a total of $5,600, okay? So we go back and we compare that to my original budget of $5,500. So the income is greater. And I'm going to put because, and I'm going to use my math as the reasoning. 5,600 is greater than 5,500.
So therefore, their budget is a good budget. They make at least equal to what they're spending every month. Okay, what are the components of a budget? So we're just going to go back up here and look, and yes, you have to write it all out. It's all these different items that make up their budget. So our components are taxes, retirement, emergency savings, utilities.
So Ms. Hall is literally just every single piece of that pie graph that's up there. She is writing down the names of each and every section. And that's all it's asking. That's what components are. What makes up that one big whole pie graph? So you have to list each and every individual piece. And it's always a good idea after you get done to go back and double count the total pieces that you have just to make sure you didn't miss one. Because if you miss one, then obviously the whole entire question is wrong.
Okay, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Do I have 11? Taxes, retirement, emergency savings. Yep.
There's 11 total.
Okay. Well, then we need to look down here. Oh, you added utilities. Okay. Okay, what are the fixed expenses and what are variable expenses? Now, remember we talked about fixed expenses are things you can change and variable expenses are things you cannot. So I'm just going to go up here on our little chart and we're actually going to just write an F or a V right by it. So then when I get down to the bottom, I make sure I get them all in there. So housing. You pay the same every month for your housing. Your rent is the same every month. If you have a house note, it's going to be the same. So that would be what?
That would be fixed.
So we're going to write a little F right here. So food. Is food fixed or variable? When you go to the grocery store, you can choose to buy the off-brand. You can have coupons. You can actually save money or spend more money every month on food, so food would be.
A variable.
And I know with holidays coming up, I usually spend more in November and December just because of holiday grocery shopping. So that is definitely variable. Clothing. You can actually buy things on sale or choose not to buy clothing at all that month. So that would be
Variable.
entertainment. That's definitely variable. You can choose to go to the movie or get the $2 Redbox movie, right?
Right.
Now, transportation and gasoline. Mrs. Nelson and I had a discussion about that. I think in this instance, they're talking about transportation being your your car note or your car insurance, and that is fixed. But your gasoline, you can actually change that. You can ride with a friend. You could use public transportation if you wanted to,
It also depends on the price of gas at the time.
because that
The oil
changes as
going up
well.
and down, so that's gonna be a variable.
Definitely variable. Now, all of your savings is fixed. That is something you should budget into your budget, and that should not change every month. So then the only one we have left is utilities. And I know you probably heard your parents talk, living in Texas, you're running that air conditioner in the summer, definitely going to be higher than in the winter.
Yeah.
And so that is going to be a variable expense. So now that I've marked them all up here, I'm just going to go down here at the bottom and list them. So I have fixed, housing. You want to talk a little bit about what we were talking about before, about fixed and variable and some of the ones that throw them off?
Yes. So while Ms. Hall is writing this, she and I had a previous conversation, actually right before we did these notes, about how sometimes you guys have a hard time determining things, if they are fixed or variable. Because it's not a necessity, you don't have to have it, but you pay for it on a monthly basis. So childcare, for example, when you have or if you have a sibling that goes, or when I send my girls to daycare, I don't get to choose whether or not I pay that month or that week for them to go. It doesn't matter if they stay home sick or if I keep them home one day or they're with the grandparents. No matter what, I have to pay that amount. So childcare is going to be a fixed expense, because no matter what, they have to go. Same thing if you're involved in sports, okay, and your parents pay either on a monthly basis or a yearly basis for you to be involved in sports. I know my children are in tumbling, so when they go, each month I have to pay a set amount of money. Again, it doesn't matter if they're sick and they don't go. No matter what, because they are still enrolled in that class, I pay the same amount each month. So that is going to be a fixed expense as well. Something that would be variable is if you decided that you were going to go, and this is only in this case, if you were going to go join a gym and you paid for the gym, and after the first month you decided, no, I don't like that, I'm not going to do it anymore, and you unenroll and don't pay anymore, then that is a variable expense. You are only paying while you are enrolled to use those services, and as soon as you unenroll yourself, then obviously you don't pay anymore.
Another example would be if you are paying for the gym every month, that would be a fixed expense. But if you want a personal trainer,
Yes.
and you would get him maybe once a month, one month, or twice another month, now that portion would be a variable. So just think about those things. And also, as I was writing my list down here, I realized I forgot taxes up here. And taxes is variable because it will vary based on what your income is. The more income you make, the more taxes you're going to pay. Okay, that's it. See y'all tomorrow. Be
Bye.
ready for your family budget.